These are the most dangerous versions of WWE wrestlers when wrestlers go beyond their ordinary selves and transform into something truly unstoppable. Starting with The Fiend. Bray Wyatt first showed up as the leader of the Wyatt family, a cult leader who spoke in riddles and had some great feuds with guys like John Cena and Daniel Bryan. However, there was one big problem. Bray kept losing all the big matches. Whether it was against Cena at WrestleMania 30 or against Taker at WrestleMania 31, the Eater of Worlds quickly became the Eater of L's. The mystique started fading, the aura started dropping, the promos were still creepy, but when you're losing every big match, people stop taking you seriously. But then 2019 happened, and The Fiend was born. The red lighting, the horror movie entrance with the lantern, that disturbing mask. It was a completely different persona that was genuinely terrifying. The Fiend didn't just beat opponents, he traumatized them. He took Finn's soul at SummerSlam. He put Seth Rollins through hell. He terrorized Monday Night Raw. He no-sold everything. This version of Bray Wyatt was genuinely spooky and could have easily reached the levels of iconic supernatural characters like The Undertaker and Kane. It's a shame we never got to see The Fiend reach his full potential, but for the brief period from 2019 to 2022, Bray Wyatt gave us something truly special. While we're talking about fiends and monsters, you simply cannot leave the Big Red Machine out of the conversation. When Kane ripped the door off Hell in a Cell in 1997, WWE found its new monster. The masked Big Red Machine was a 7-foot nightmare who didn't speak, didn't feel pain, and destroyed everything in his path. He tombstoned Pete Rose multiple times for fun. He feuded with Stone Cold and The Undertaker, and became nightmare fuel for children all over the world. But here's the thing. Over the years, Kane started becoming more human. He started talking, he started doing comedy angles, and the monster was slowly disappearing. But in 2003, WWE forced him to unmask, and that's when Kane became something much more worse. Without the mask, Kane wasn't trying to hide anymore. He was unleashing everything he'd kept buried. He set Jim Ross on fire. He electrocuted Shane McMahon. He chokeslammed Eric Bischoff off the stage. This man was such a menace to society that they literally had to put him in handcuffs and have security officials escort him to the ring for his matches. This wasn't wrestling anymore. It was a horror movie. Kane became unhinged in a way that made the masked version look tame. In fact, Brock Lesnar himself has admitted that Kane in 2003 was the only guy on the roster who was stronger than him. The 2003 version of Kane was a 7-foot psychopath who just wanted to hurt people. Turns out the mask wasn't hiding a monster. It was protecting us from one. However, sometimes the scariest version of a wrestler has nothing to do with masks or pyro. Sometimes you just need to put on a mouthguard and leave humanity behind. Perc Angle came into WWE in 1999 as a goofy Olympic hero. He was talented, but he was also the guy who was often caught in comedy skits and got his head shaved bald by Edge. Even when he turned heel and became more serious, there was always something slightly comedic about him. He was singing songs, getting chokeslammed by Big Show from 50 feet high, and the comedic undertones often saturated his natural intensity. But then, around 2006, something shifted. Once Angle put on the mouthguard and got drafted to ECW, it was game over. The man was reportedly working through injuries that would have ended most careers, but Angle was putting on classics that made everyone take notes. His matches with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker during this period were brutal. Plus, once Angle left WWE and went to TNA, the insanity levels got turned up to 11. Some say he was on serious painkillers just to function, and it showed in his wrestling style. He was throwing German suplexes like they were nothing, hitting moonsaults off the top of the cage, and doing somersaults off the stage despite his neck being held together by medicine and prayers. The scary part was you never knew if Angle would actually hurt someone or himself. Every suplex looked like it could end a career. Every Angle slam felt dangerous. This was Perc Angle at his peak, and he was the best wrestler on the planet. But shifting from one bald menace to another, let's talk about the infamous 2009 version of Randy Orton. Randy Orton has always been one of the most dangerous names in the WWE. From the early days of his career, he was the Legend Killer, RKOing Hulk Hogan and setting The Undertaker on fire. Even as a member of Rated RKO with Edge, Orton continued crossing limits and pushing the envelope of what was acceptable on WWE TV. But in 2009, Orton reached his final form as a supervillain. He shaved his head, formed Legacy, and decided to destroy the most powerful family in the WWE. Orton kicked Vince McMahon in the head. He kissed Stephanie McMahon in front of Triple H. He put Shane McMahon back on the shelf. He tried to blow up John Cena. Every week, someone was getting stretchered out after an Orton attack. The RKO was already devastating, but combined with the stalking, the mind games, and the punts, Orton became WWE's apex predator and terrorized the entire locker room. '09 Orton was such a menace that even after almost 2 decades, fans can't stop talking about how special Randy was during his prime. Brock Lesnar has always been a force of nature. Ever since his 2002 debut, Lesnar has been making history and suplexing people into oblivion. But after ending Taker's streak at WrestleMania 30, Lesnar became truly unstoppable. What came next was complete domination. At SummerSlam, Brock destroyed John Cena with 16 German suplexes. This conqueror version of Brock held the Universal Championship hostage and showed up once every few months just to remind everyone he was the alpha. Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, didn't matter who stepped up, they all got demolished. Lesnar would suplex people, hit an F5, and leave. The scary part was how effortless it looked. Brock wasn't even trying hard, and he was still unbeatable. Roman Reigns couldn't stop him. Braun Strowman couldn't stop him. The only person who finally beat him was Goldberg, but even then, Lesnar got his lick back at WrestleMania 33. But speaking of Goldberg, let's talk about his most dangerous form in WCW. Bill Goldberg walked into WCW in 1997 as an unknown former football player. Nobody expected much from him, and everyone thought he'd disappear in a few weeks. But then he won his first match in under 2 minutes, then his second, then his 10th, and then people started counting. The streak became the hottest thing in wrestling, and every week, Goldberg would march down to the ring, destroy whoever was in front of him, and leave. Spear, jackhammer, done. Matches rarely lasted 5 minutes. Sometimes they didn't even last 1. The pyro, the entrance through the backstage area, the security escort, it all made him feel like a fighter being unleashed from a cage. And once the bell rang, it was over. The streak claimed 173 victims according to WCW, and whether that number was inflated or not, it didn't matter. For over a year, Goldberg was the most dominant force professional wrestling had ever seen, and it only took him 2 moves. Switching gears from Goldberg's dominance, let's talk about one of the biggest career revivals in wrestling history. Matt Hardy has been wrestling for over 3 decades. He's won tag team titles, mid-card titles, had memorable rivalries. But in 2016, his career felt like it was winding down. He was in TNA, working matches that nobody really cared about. But then, one day, Jeff beat him so bad that something inside Matt snapped. He became Broken Matt Hardy. This wasn't just a simple character tweak. Matt created an entire universe for his new persona. There was a lake of reincarnation, a dilapidated boat, fireworks, drones, and of course his gardener, Senor Benjamin. Matt talked in this weird, dramatic accent, laughed maniacally, and referred to himself as a vessel for all past versions of Hardy. He stopped wrestling normal matches and started having deletion battles at the Hardy compound in North Carolina. The final deletion match against Jeff was unlike anything wrestling had ever seen. It was a cinematic match before cinematic matches became normal, and this version of Matt was so unhinged that he made everyone else look normal by comparison. But moving on from Hardy's deletion antics, let's talk about one of the most special gimmicks in the WWE that hasn't been seen in ages. Finn Balor has always been a good wrestler. Whether he was leading the Bullet Club in Japan or carrying NXT during its prime years, he has always delivered good matches and has always been respected by his peers. But once he paints himself up, everything changes. The entrance takes twice as long, the movements become more aggressive, the eyes look different. Finn becomes possessed by something ancient and unstoppable. Every time Finn brings out the demon, you know it's time for serious business. Against Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship at SummerSlam, the Demon won. Against AJ Styles, the Demon won. Against Baron Corbin at SummerSlam, the Demon won. In fact, only a handful of men have been able to defeat the Demon King on the main roster, and it's been months since we last saw Finn bring out this dangerous version of himself on a big stage. But speaking of the Demon King, let's talk about one of the only wrestlers who's been able to slay the demon. Roman Reigns was pushed as WWE's golden boy for years, and fans hated it. He main evented 4 straight WrestleManias, beat The Undertaker, and the crowd booed him out of every building. WWE kept forcing him as the good guy, and it wasn't working. But then, the pandemic happened, and when Roman came back, he became something completely different. The tribal chief wasn't asking for respect anymore. He was taking it. Roman aligned with Paul Heyman, turned heel, and formed the Bloodline with his cousins, the Usos. As the tribal chief and head of the table, Roman demanded acknowledgement, and if you didn't give it, you got destroyed. His Universal Championship reign became legendary, and he held the title for over 1,000 days. Daniel Bryan, Edge, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre, Goldberg. It didn't matter who stepped up. He beat everyone. He wasn't just the champion, he was WWE's final boss. SmackDown became his show. WrestleMania became his event. WWE became his yard. He held both world championships at once and unified them. Nobody could touch him. When Roman finally lost to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40, it took 2 years of storytelling and the entire cast of WWE Avengers to dethrone him. That's how dangerous Prime Tribal Chief was. He was an unstoppable force, up there with the likes of Prime Cena and Prime Batista. And speaking of Prime Cena, check out this video next about how good John Cena was in his prime.